Hey everyone, what's up? So today I'm here in the workshop and I'm going to be working on some of these black pines, and I wanted to just share how I evaluate the health of the pines before I go about making a root over rock pine or an exposed root pine. All right, so I've got three examples here. These are in 3 by 9 inch Anderson tree bands, and they have like sort of a cross here. And in each one of these, about a year ago, I planted the seedlings, and I've already wired the trunks. But these three are significantly different. So let's start. I'm going to set these two aside. So let's start with this one. So the color on this is really not good, and the wavy needles that it has here at the top are also not a great sign. So most likely this tree is not super healthy. Now the other signs are that there's about 30 of these in a given flat, and this is one of the ones that has the smallest diameter trunk here. So those are three things that right away tell me that this guy is probably not going to have a ton of roots to work with, and I'm going to probably want to set this aside and just let it grow on for another year. You can see on the bottom there's some nice fine live root tips there, and so it's definitely growing. It's not on its way out the door, but I'll go ahead and pull this out just to kind of show what the roots look like. So it's got long roots, which is the intention of the Anderson tree band here. And there's a little bit of root division up here, which probably happened prior to it being in the band. And then there are some long, very skinny roots here. I mean, these guys are not really long enough, or not really thick enough. There's not really any wood to them. Like I could just sever them by pulling them like that. And even though there's nice, good, healthy white tips here on the end, there's not really enough here to work with to make an exposed root or a root over rock composition. So when you see this kind of health on the top of the tree, probably best to just leave it alone and let it grow out for a while. So let's just jump to this nice, good example. So this one has a nice thick trunk on it, twice the size of the other one. It's got a big terminal bud on the end here. This is going to make a big long extension this coming spring. And it's got nice, healthy, dark green needles. The needles are relatively straight, not perfect. There's a lot of needles, and just generally speaking, when you look at the size of the two of these guys together, you can see that this one is doing a lot better than this one. All right, so on the bottom as well, you see there's not just a couple of root tips, but there's a ton of root tips coming out of the bottom. And so what I expect when I pull this apart is not only to have a little bit more trouble getting it apart because the roots have established themselves in here, so I'm pushing down from the bottom, but also to see exactly this, which is there are roots in here that are the size of the trunk of the other tree. Those roots, all of those roots right there, are what we're looking for when we want to make a root over rock or exposed root composition. And that really allows us to work with what we have and move it to the next step. The other thing you'll see here is that there's a little bit, so the tray was, this Anderson band was filled with basically a little bit of perlite and cocoa at the top to keep the seedling moist when it was first planted. Then this whole section was filled with coarse pumice, large, well, not super large, but kind of that size pumice, maybe 1/4 inch. And then down here you see that this is some large perlite and some more smaller perlite and cocoa coir at the bottom. And you can see that the roots just kind of mostly run down through the pumice and then end up at the bottom. And that's sort of what we want in creating this sort of scenario in preparation for making exposed root and root over rock bonsai.